Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So you may have heard the next big update will bring Celestial Mounts and Celestial Insignias. So in this video I want to provide my feedback along with covering the cost changes. You'll get different amounts for salvaging certain insignias, and the upgrade costs are also changing. So first we jump to Celestial Mounts. You're going to need to upgrade 10 of them to Celestial, requiring 200 mount upgrade tokens each. So it's recommended before this update drops, you have 2000 mount upgrade tokens. The main source of that is the trade bar store right here. Purchase them when they're on sale. The reason you want to have 10 on Celestial will be because our bolster can get 25% higher, which is going to boost our equip power and our combat power. We'll see exactly how much just here when we go ahead and upgrade 10 of them to Celestial. However, what you should keep in mind is they've actually reduced the cost of upgrading mounts in general. You look at a green mount, upgrading that to blue now only requires 10 tokens. Going from blue to purple only needs 50. Purple to legendary 100, legendary to mythic 150, and then yes, mythic to celestial 200. You can see those costs listed just here. So the total is 510 mount tokens needed to get a celestial mount. If we compare that before this update, the old version, it required 500 just to get to mythic. So all around, it's not really something a new player is going to have to worry about, upgrading mounts to Celestial. The cost is about the same. Ultimately, it's a good change, but I can understand if you feel a little bit hard done by if you just recently upgraded mounts to Mythic. But we don't know just when this module 32.5 update will be releasing. However, the end date for feedback is Tuesday, February the 24th, so we may get this as early as March. But yes, things are still open to change, but I ultimately feel this is totally acceptable. No issues in terms of the cost of getting these mounts to Celestial. They've done pretty good here for both new players and older players. 2000 mount tokens is not the end of the world. Of course, those costs do add up when you play multiple characters, and that kind of does suck. So it would be nice if they implemented some system one way or another. Say you upgrade 20 to Celestial, then all of a sudden you have all those 20 available on all your characters at Celestial, making the cost a little bit higher than just having, say, one character kitted out, but at least reducing it from, if you wanted to play all 9 characters, needing 18,000 tokens. So you can see here, we now have 8 out of 10 upgraded, so we've got a 20% extra bolster. This has already boosted our powers here, but let's get the remaining 2 upgraded. You will of course want to do this strategically based on what mounts you may actually use. Right now I'm kind of just doing this randomly. It's the preview test server. I'm not actually spending any real currencies, but we can see with 10 upgraded we have the maximum 120% bolster. What this does is give us a bit of an item level boost, and when we look at the mount combat powers, this has gone from a 3000 magnitude mount power plus 300 to now 3375 plus 338. So we've increased the magnitude on this by over 400. So yeah, that's definitely going to be a noticeable power bump up, and will definitely be something you'll want to do pretty soon after the update drops. Additionally, the equip power, like ferocity, was 1.6%, now it's 1.8%. But again, the cost to get these upgraded will be 200 tokens from Mythic. In total, from say blue to Celestial, it's pretty much the same price as it was before, just to get to Mythic. These bolster increases will also add a bit of power creep to artifact calls, because again, the overall mount power is getting upgraded, but also those debuffs that we use to increase all our damage within like 10 seconds. With the Bestial Fire Archon upgraded, you can see this is now a 19.7% increased damage taken from just 16%. So you add that up over 4 supports, along with the magnitude increases, we'll be looking at a pretty significant boost for artifact call damage, making it even more important to optimize your power rotation for that 10 seconds. And you could consider that a bit of an issue for, say, the more casual players, because the difference between a group that's optimized stacking all those buffs and a group that isn't is substantial, and that difference is only growing with these kind of changes. So yes, I feel the upgrade cost is acceptable. This difference from the old amount to the new amount, it's just playing multiple characters is going to require quite a big cost now, because most of the mounts we could get that were account wide were already on Mythic. You didn't need to spend any tokens to get them upgraded, and now you will. So it would be really good if you could add a account-wide system here with upgrading, so you don't need to spend so much to upgrade them on alternate characters. And I would also throw a bone in and make all the older lockboxes that drop mythic mounts, account-wide versions, also to drop with that mount the amount of mount tokens it takes for it to get to Celestial. Because those are still premium lockbox mounts, and it only makes sense that they would give the tokens to be able to still get them to the maximum quality. At the very least, make the new mounts releasing in new lockboxes Celestial. I would also appreciate if they'd done the same for companions. Otherwise, you are just increasing the amount of cost it takes to get your character maxed out, which will just hurt the game, increasing that what seems to be perceived paywall for newer players entering the game. They all demand it's really badly pay to win because they hit that wall and it feels far too high to climb, considering the majority of resources required come from like lockboxes or require AD. But let's move on to actually Celestial Insignias. So first, let's have a look at the prices of this. So to actually upgrade one, say from green, it's going to require now just 10 powder. Then to go from blue to purple, that's 50 powder. Upgrading to legendary is 250 powder. And then from legendary to mythic, 1250 powder. That is half of what we've seen before. And now we get the new rank Celestial, which requires 2,500 powder. So you will need 50,000 powder to go from a full set of 20 mythic insignias to all Celestial. On top of that, they've added the annoying 50% chance. So you need to be careful to not click this upgrade and first add some preservation wards. I ultimately think this is just, why did they even bother doing this? It's literally a trap for a misclick, so you end up wasting that insignia powder. What is that going to cause? More people getting annoyed by this, going to customer support saying they misclicked and wanting their powder back. It ultimately makes no sense that this is here other than to be a trap, which is just a terrible thing. Sure, we need to add some preservation wards here, and you'll maybe spend on average 1 preservation ward every 2 insignias you upgrade, but just the fact that you have to add it here before upgrading means it's very easy to misclick and fail to add it and waste that powder. And the cost of 10 preservation wards for upgrading all your insignias is completely meaningless. Again, you go from upgrading all the lower ranks of insignias and they all have 100% chance to upgrade, so you never had to bother clicking add the pres wards. So it just feels like a trap for newer players, or for those of us who have the muscle memory of just not adding them, or just never thought you had to add them. Additionally, there's the trap with the moat. Why would you add a moat here? And even in their blog, they showed adding a coal moat to get 100%. This again just appears like another player trap. You can see they literally displayed the announcement of Mythic Insignias, and they have a moat shown here, like you need to. There are already players getting trapped by this, mistaking it, thinking you'll need a coal moat to get these upgraded, when you do not. You just need one preservation ward on average, and the thing will upgrade. And again, one preservation ward every 2 insignias you upgrade is a completely meaningless cost. I nearly even just clicked it there. It's even flashing away at you. They could simply add it so that the preservation wards are automatically added, or just scrap that percentage altogether. What's the point? If they really want to have a percentage, sure, lower it down to like 10%, 5%, and just reduce the insignia powder cost a bit, so you offset the cost by needing some preservation wards. But if we look at the exact price of upgrading these insignias, what we find are these to be the new costs. So in total, if you want to go from green to celestial with the new change, you need over 4,000 insignia powder. This is versus the current system, which needs 3,000 powder to get to mythic. So yes, a new player joining the game, unlike with the mount cost reduction, will need to spend nearly 1,000 more powder to get their insignias maxed out, which honestly is pretty crazy, especially considering the amount of stats a Celestial Insignia gives you versus a mythic one, we have to compare versus a base one here, doesn't really make that 2,500 insignia powder worth very much at all. You will get in total, not considering the preferred effect, 5,000 item level for going from a full set of mythic to celestial insignias. That 5,000 item level is really not much. And the way the stat system works, whenever you gain item level, you reduce all of your ratings. The only way to get them back is through combined rating, along with the actual stats they give you. So all they really do is just juggle your stats around. You don't gain as much combined rating as item level, so all our stats here will go down by 150, and then just power and crit severity get boosted. So you ultimately don't gain any total more ratings. It just allows you to more specialize in a set few ratings, which already at this point is not really a problem with mythic insignias. So the issue I have here with these celestial insignias is they shouldn't cost much more than it was to get to mythic. This is so that you have that balance for newer players. They want to get maxed out. It would still take about the same rate as it did before. You can check my ultimate upgrade guide, linked in the video description below, and you can see how insignias are really not very high up there on the priority list here, with the amount of item level you gain compared to the sheer amount of costs they require. To make matters worse, there is very little sources of insignia powder, the best being the Jubilee event. Outside of that, it's the Reaper's Challenge to reliably get those tokens to be able to purchase the legendary insignia choice packs, and then you dissolve those insignias for the powder. And then of course there's the trade bar store, where you can open lockboxes, you get trade bars, and you purchase the powder just here. Of course, wait until a discount. So ultimately, my issue with these new celestial insignias is they just cost more than it was to get a mythic insignia. And this is bad for newer players. Mythic insignias are already crazy expensive for the low amount of value they give. And on top of that, that new system with a 50% chance to upgrade is just silly. It seems designed in a way that you can easily misclick and waste that powder if you fail to add a preservation ward in this slot just here. So finally, let's look at what did they change with the actual amount of insignia powder you can get with dissolving these insignias. First of all, we can see these are lower ranks, nothing has actually changed. But then, when you go to dissolve your mythic insignias, you can see they're only going to give 625. This is the list here, the breakdown of how much insignia powder they're going to give per rarity level. This is versus the current values on the live server. you're getting double the amount from mythic insignias. Now, of course, the reason for this is because the price to upgrade to a mythic is getting halved. Therefore, it makes sense that the salvage rate also gets halved. You can take advantage of this by dissolving your current mythic insignias before this update goes live, and then being able to invest that powder into different insignias if you wanted to. It is still not the best thing to do, because dissolving these insignias will not fully give you back the amount of, say, powder, effective powder, that it's worth. Because despite this thing only requiring 1,250, going from legendary to mythic, getting that same amount of powder back doesn't actually give you the value of the original item. If you dissolve a mythic before the update, getting 1,250 powder would allow you after the update to use that powder to upgrade a legendary to a mythic. But you then require a legendary insignia for that. But yes, the opportunity is there if you want to switch insignias. It's not good to do if you want to stick with what you have and get that upgraded, but it can be worth it if you wanted to switch. After the update drops, mythic insignias will significantly drop in price because they will no longer give as much powder, and they'll be a lot cheaper to upgrade to. Similarly will be legendary and those lower ranks. They will ultimately be a little bit less valuable since they're easy to upgrade to. However, with the salvage costs staying the same on those lower ranks, getting a legendary insignia will be the same as before, 250 to 250. So I don't really have any problems with regards to them adjusting that salvage value of just the mythic ones. But if you were to buy mythic insignias now to dissolve them, do them before this update. But it doesn't make sense to dissolve all the ones you're using unless you intend to switch to an entirely new set. Then make sure you have at hand the legendary insignias that you'll want to upgrade to when the update does drop. And this is what a full stable of Celestial Mounts and Insignias look like. But as a last point of feedback, it's again multiple characters. The issue of needing full sets on each to play effectively. Now yes, these insignias do not get bound like celestial enchantments. Once upgraded, you can still go ahead and trade them. You can throw them in your guild bank. You can transfer them to your other characters and use them there. So you technically only need 3 sets of insignias. 1 for tank, 1 for healer, and 1 for DPS. And that's it. No problems. Just have to switch them via the bank. I just wish they would have a better system than requiring you to have to move them via the bank. It's just time consuming and it feels a waste of time at that. Simply add an account-wide system and done. You don't have to go through the trading via the shared bank. My suggestion, as made earlier, was to rework the insignia system where you upgrade the mount insignia slot and not exactly the insignia. That way, whenever you throw any quality insignia, even a green one, into the slot, because the slot is upgraded to, say, Celestial, then the insignia would give the stats of a Celestial insignia, allowing me to freely switch between whatever insignias I want, and they will be at Celestial. They could make this slot cost double the amount of insignia powder as a normal insignia, and that would be fine by me as long as this slot, when upgraded on this character, would also be upgraded on all my other characters. But as those of you have pointed out, this is probably a system they wouldn't implement anytime soon because it requires quite a bit of restructuring to the base coding, I assume, of how this is set up. And the issue with them adding an account-wide system with insignias would be they'd probably have to make them bound to your character. That way you can claim them on your other characters without, say, selling them on and then creating that issue of all those insignias you have on all the other characters becoming unavailable because you sold the original. They would have to create some sort of linking with that, And what they ended up settling on with Celestial Enchantments was binding that enchantment and then being able to claim it because it's bound. And that way you don't run into the issue of, yes, having duplicate items you could sell. But again, you don't have to worry. Insignias are not getting bound when they're upgraded to Celestial, so you'll still just be able to transfer them to your alts. So the max you have to upgrade is 3 different sets if you want to min-max for DPS, healer and tank. So the takeaway here is upgrading to Celestial Mounts, totally fine. Just watch out on the power creep of artifact calls. In terms of the price of that, however, it needs to be adjusted for alternate characters. There needs to be something implemented so you don't have to have the full price if you actually want to play other characters, versus with Mythic Mounts right now, they're account wide and you don't need to upgrade them on alternate characters. So something needs to be done there. As for the Insignias, get rid of that 50% chance. Either reduce that chance to make it more meaningful and then reduce the amount of insignia dust, or yeah, just get rid of it, because it's just a trap for newer players or anybody really to misclick and waste powder. And otherwise, absolutely add more ways that we can reliably get insignia powder. We feel a bit choked right now. Either just wait for the Jubilee event or grinding the Reaper's Challenge, which takes forever still. Maybe increase the amount of Reaper marks we get, or reduce the cost that it is required to purchase the Legend Insignias with them. And yeah, just add them to more chests. Make them drop a bit more often. But I'm only saying this because you're increasing the cost to 4,000 instead of 3,000. If the cost was the same, they could just keep the system as it is. We have managed so far with Mythic Insignias, and they have been dropping in price since they were released, so they have become more accessible over time, but it still doesn't feel great as a newer player. If you're coming in and you hit that wall with Insignias, they're insanely expensive to get a full set of 20, and there's just no real perceivable way to reliably farm them in a meaningful amount of time. Again, unless you swipe, open a ton of lockboxes, and buy the powder with trade bars. But with that said, hopefully this was somewhat insightful. Thanks all for watching, and we'll see you guys around.